When making a case for your project, a few tools in the workshop will be handy. This is a metal bender made out of steel angle. You can see here it's just a steel angle, just ordinary steel angle, quite thick. It's about 5 millimeters or so thick, and the top plate is about ½ inch steel, fairly heavy steel. It doesn't have any slots at all, because that would mean a lot of nuts and bolts and clamps and all sorts of things. It's just a very simple bender. So this is a little piece of metal that I've just did a test bend on. By marking the bending point, I can work out what the dimensions of the two sides will end up being after you've made the bend. If you get it wrong, you end up making a lid that may or may not fit. This particular project uses a piece of 25mm by 3mm thick flat aluminium bar, and it's bent around the circumference of the chassis. So again, this was bent on this bender, and this was the test piece. One handy tool for cutting aluminium is this drop saw. This particular drop saw has 100 teeth. It's a TCT blade. Then you need a few other tools to trim it back to the right size. This is a very handy power file and an angle grinder with some aluminium cutting disc, 1mm. These are German discs designed to cut aluminium, and a few other bits and pieces that you need to finish off the metal work. So here is the case I've been working on here in the workshop. There is the lid, just lifted it up, and I've made a bottom and a top. I'll just show you the bottom, lifting it up like that, and get back a bit. Now if you don't have a bender to make these particular bent pieces for top and bottom, another way of solving the problem and to make the case look quite neat is to use a bit of angle. For example, here's a bit of angle, the type of angle I've used for the uprights in the corners. It's 20mm by 20mm angle, and it's 3mm thick. If you run that along the edge there, like that, you will get quite a nice neat... here's a piece of 10mm by 20mm, 1mm thick, which I use as rails. That can also make quite a nice corner. And the top and bottom side panels can fit in between or on top. On this particular case, I've put some 25 by 3mm thick aluminium bar, which I've bent. There are two pieces, a top section and a lower section. I bent them on the bender I showed you, and that just finishes off the front. The uprights on this case consist of 4 aluminium angle 20mm by 3mm thick, all cut to the same length, 130mm in this case. And when I cut these angles, after I finish, I drill a number of holes in them where I think I might need them. Some holes are tapped. The 3mm thickness allows you to tap them, 3mm tap, and some screw holes with countersunks, because the front panel will probably go over here, just in case I need them to hold certain things. Inside the case I have already fitted some rails, which you'll see here. That's just some 20mm by 10mm 1mm thick material, goes from front to back. The side rails are 4 pieces cut to the same length, 230mm in this case, and the rear rails are the same, 20mm by 10mm, cut to the width of the case, which is around the 280mm mark. These particular rails you see in here are going to hold circuit boards. So that's a quick view of the case. It's basically a cage. So here's a look at the case with the top lid on. I've just put it on without any screws at the moment, just so you can see the gap between the top and bottom panels. Also helps you when you bend. If you're a little bit out on this dimension, this happens to be 45mm, but if it comes out to 46 or 40 or some other number, you can actually make up for it, because you're going to put a filler piece in here, a piece of aluminium. So you don't have to be 100% precise with the dimensions on that side of the bend. The top section has to be reasonably accurate because you're going to fit it between the uprights. As you can see along here, it's got to fit in there. There's a small gap here of about 1 millimetre, but that's okay, that doesn't matter. And you can see how it butts up against the front trim, which is the 25 millimetre by 3 millimetre thick trim. So that's the back of this case. Will take another panel which will have in this particular project a 100 watt RF amplifier and driver and a few other bits and pieces.